Ja ću probati predstaviti ovih 15 minuta rad socijalne.
I will try to present the work of our social cooperative, Humana Nova, from Croatia. I am the president of the General Assembly. I've been presiding actually for a year and a half. Otherwise, I'm employed by the NGO, which is, apart from Humana Nova, it established a couple more agricultural companies. Well, in total, we employ 30 people. So in some way, this is a very good initial starting point for the activities the way they were described yesterday and today. Talking about the cooperative in the very beginning, before I do that, let me present briefly what the situation in Croatia is. We're a small company, 4.5 million people, working people, 3.5 people, and yet 2.1 million of unemployed, which means that we have 2.1 million people representing inactive population. The unemployment growth amounts to huge growth, reaching the number of 320,000 people, including more than 40% of unemployed, which represents a group of young people as well as many highly employed people. 50% represents the unemployed persons in the age group of 55 plus, who most possibly ended up at the unemployment office due to the bankruptcy of a number of important big factories, from textile and so on. We're looking at the number of unemployed. You can see that the pensioners, the ratio of workers towards pensioners is 25:1. So in moments it was even worse. But due to the economy the way it exists now in Croatia, well, we can't go on like that, that's for sure. In total, there are 88,000 companies in Croatia, out of which a couple more than 1,000 cooperatives. In total, this is 1.25%. But the question is whether these are truly cooperatives or is this a remnant of the time of Yugoslavia. In different discussions talking about that question, we don't really see whether we are actually in a position to be able to talk about the 7 cooperative principles. So, in other words, we can really say that we're not really sure how many we have, but most of the cooperatives that we do have amount to agricultural ones. I'm using all these figures so that you understand the development of enterprises in Croatia. So 0.05%, some 40 enterprises can actually be described as social ones. What do we actually do? We have recognized a number of issues in our country. We are a part of Croatia, a little community that contributed most to waste management. In our county, we are in charge of sorting out all of waste, and it replaced the lost work of textile industry. But now we believe that we can be an example to other counties in Croatia so that they can join our philosophy. In our county, I can say that we had the biggest growth of unemployment in Croatia due to the fact that our county in the north was based on employing workers in Austria, Germany, and other European countries. And the biggest companies were textile and construction companies, but unfortunately, as we know, the story turned out to be really bad. So the most important part of our work amounts to a huge number of people who are now unemployed due to losing work in textile and construction industry. We are also the county with the lowest salaries in Croatia. We have 20 to 30% lower wages compared to the Croatian average. Neither do we have, therefore we have a high number of people on benefits, and they come from the Roma minority community, and they, to a great extent, are the beneficiaries of social support. Apart from, as I said, recycling and waste collection, we are now concentrating on producing cheap clothing. Looking at the whole area of Croatia, entrepreneurial approach, of course, will have to be the solution. And we believe that at the local community, this holds true as well. Why did we start to work in that way? Because through NGOs, we believe that we will go hand in hand into the spirit of cooperation. On the other hand, we wish to increase the quality of life of everybody, following the principle of the society of tolerance and cooperation. This holds true for our support to individuals and families in distress. In our whole community, we believe that the primary real sector has to contribute to that. Therefore, we find that the development of local community greatly depends on that sustainable development. Who do we predominantly work for? Predominantly for the marginalized groups, as I've already mentioned, the minority as well as the unemployed, who are in a way customers as well as volunteers. So in a way, we wish to support the development of social awareness in our community through a well-organized approach over the last couple of months. On the other hand, we have set up a good cooperation with the employment office, social security institutions, all of them who work on the local level. What do we actually do? We are cooperative type B. We employ persons with disabilities, predominantly working on product and sale of quality, innovative textile products, working predominantly on the basis of handling recycled materials. Humana Nova predominantly deals with purchasing cotton and clothes in cooperation with clothes producing companies. In total, we process 65 tons of clothes, recycle it, and place it back on the market. First of all, it all ends up in our small shops, second-hand shops in Varaždin and Čakovec, and then in the period of 3 months, we supply second-hand shops in Croatia. We produce different materials and products in the line of eco and recycled products. We perform tailoring and sewing for external customers, which is very important for us. We also provide services in our cooperation with schools and those groups who are that are marginalized in order to help them in clothes repairing, laundry, and ironing. So you can see some pictures that will present how we perform sorting of clothes, how our shops are organized. We have groups organized in order to do that, and the part that is not being used, we try to design some new innovative products for that purpose. I have brought some products with me, from gloves for the kitchen, clothes for children, bags for your comfort. So if you wish, you are more than welcome to help yourself and take whatever you want back home with you. I would also need to mention that we are only just starting, and we were established in 2011, so we only have a brief period of time that we've worked, but we do huge potential in cooperative work. I can mention that physical persons who established this cooperative concentrated around one person who actually had to guide and manage the whole process. Over the last 8 months, we have been working. Now we employed, in the beginning, 6 employees. Today we have 18 members of staff, and they all come from marginalized groups. We have 4 disabled, and we have additional few from the Roma community, long-term unemployed, and so on. We work on the surface of 310 square meters of manufacturing plant with 50 square meters of stores. We wish to progress so that we already are very well known in the community so that our reputation will grow even further. I have mentioned that we have a manufacturing plant and shop in Čakovec, but we plan to open some outlets and more shops in order to follow the example of this model. We wish to do that in the next years, since now we already have gained 1 year experience, so we have checked our success already. The second thing we are now attempting to open is the so-called clothing library in Zagreb. As if a person goes to a library to get a book, they will be able to borrow clothing and bring it back. What are our objectives? To begin with, our predominant mission is to actually organize the labor market in order to organize the services for the local community. The profit will therefore, well, we still don't have profit. Nevertheless, we wish to distribute it in order to support projects that we set up together with our partners or are recognized as important ones in the community, so that we follow the examples of all companies who redistribute their profit in important areas. This is one of the examples with a social care center, and we organized an event with them, and the persons who are mentally ill were wearing clothes that were made and redesigned from the old, useless clothing. This is yet another photograph of one of our workshops working in the local community, working with children. These are our creative workshops where we can start cooperating with other organizations within cooperative cooperation, management project, and entrepreneurial projects. Let me mention some midterm goals. In cooperation with the local community waste management companies, we wish to improve our work in that respect to reduce waste in local community by 5% in the next 5 years. So we also wish to introduce a complete green production, meaning we wish to reuse all recycled and eco-friendly materials that we deal with. This is an example of slippers from the very beginning of our work. Well, you can see an example of a more highly developed models here. Thank you, sir. So let me also mention that in a way, we are now at the point of covering our cost, and the projection for the future suggests that we would need to create 10,000 euros of profit in 2013, which will be redistributed into projects that we are planning to do. And so continuous investments in technology and development is important. We also mentioned that we wish to ensure the 13th, so-called 13th salary to everybody who will have worked for 12 months. In other words, the cooperative Humana Nova wishes to have a minimum average salary of Croatia in the sectors that the people work in. I have already mentioned that in our county, the average wage is by 30, even up to 40% lower than the average of the whole state of Croatia. Recognizing our cooperative as the first social cooperative in Croatia, according to the new legislation, we can say that we were the first local social cooperative. There are some who have been working for longer. Nevertheless, we received an award as one of the best exemplary companies in Croatia. So we received an annual award for social company in Croatia in 2011. What are our possibilities? We believe that we can actually become the biggest company in Croatia involved in cloth collecting and recycling. In reference to what I've mentioned before, I can also say that we had 135 tons of textile waste in 2011 collected. We're talking about 135 tons of textile. In Croatia, there's a possibility of opening at least 40 branches in all major cities of Croatia, employing up to 900 to 950 employees in our company. Of course, these are long-term objectives depending on the situation. We must understand that there's a new waste management law that was adopted in Croatia, so until 2000 and so every waste will have to be recycled and collected separately. So this will also support our future goals. Further on, let me mention a few issues and our attempts to resolve them. As the colleague talked about problems, we also have a problem with equity, and we wish to finance some investments in order to fulfill our idea to also initiate some other projects. There are some other 4 organizations that are doing well, and there are some that are not doing so well. So we need some investment loans and startup loans in order to set up as many branches as possible and set up a national network, which in a way would be capable of solving the problem that Croatia is facing currently. At the moment, we can handle 100 tons per year. We are the smallest county of Croatia, but let us just think about the potential of the capital city of Zagreb. What we also need is know-how. These are people working in our cooperative, and they are quite varied, and most of them have never worked. They are facing intellectual challenges. Some others are faced with physical challenges. And there are some who have worked in the textile industry in vertical structures for 20, 25 years. And now they've come to a somewhat open organization when they're allowed to share their views and make their comments. So they need know-how from organizations who, in a way, succeeded to set up some models that survived over the years. Another problem that we are faced with is Croatian situation. We've had a novel law on cooperatives. So the Association of Croatian Cooperatives has a compulsory membership, which is in opposition to cooperative principles of functioning. So this is the same as it is the case with our Chamber of Commerce, Chamber of Craftsmen. So they all have compulsory membership. Most of the advice that is given is from us to them, other than the other way around. So actually there is a need to reform our model. We are going through a certain process of Croatian social cooperatives. In this association we have all the social cooperatives, and yet there's no support organization other than Association of Croatian Social Cooperatives. So there are some 20 social cooperatives in Croatia. We believe that this is enough for a somewhat different start for the future. Thank you so much for your attention. Well, now let us move on to Ms. Alenka Puch, who has the final presentation. Well, let me only mention that the other group has already finished, so we don't want to be too late for lunch. So let us kick off and hurry up. I come from the Employment Office of Slovenia. You said that you have 18 members and 10 employees. This actually means that the other 10 are also members, or are they volunteers, or what does that figure stand for? Well, there are 18 members, 10 employees. All employed are members of the cooperative with a democratic management. The rest 8 persons refer to 5 with a disability, and it includes the society who works with the disabled, and additional 300 help as volunteers. I, for example, am a volunteer in charge of promotion. One more question for the employees. As you've mentioned, that they are members of marginalized groups. Did you get some support from the employment office for those people? Well, it is very hard to get any kind of support for the employment office in Croatia because they are new, and we are a new company and there's no trust. You can only get it for the first employment, and yet in the later years you can improve your quota. But what we use is resources from the Fund for Professional Rehabilitation, Vocational Rehabilitation, which replaces for lack of productivity of these persons, and that's all.